Ave Maria, I am here in Cairo, Egypt, and probably a few people in the United States hear the word Egypt and they think of the pyramids, the Sphinx, maybe a extinct desert population of very few people. But most of you probably know that the population of Egypt is enormous. 114 million people in Egypt. That's a third of the size of the United States. And here in Cairo, Cairo has, urban area-wise, 20 million people. That's the same size as New York City. So there's 114 million people in Egypt and then 20 million in Cairo here. That is the second largest Muslim city in the world, next to only Jakarta, Indonesia. So the population of Egypt is now 90% Muslim and 10% Christian. And then that 10% Christian is a mix of very few evangelicals, but mostly Coptic Orthodox and Coptic Catholics. If you go watch my CPX number 33, you can learn the difference between the Eastern Catholic churches and the Eastern Orthodox churches. We're not going to get into that today. But I do want to give you the history a little bit of Christianity and Islam and current secularism, because all three of those meet up in this enormous city of Cairo. So let's look at the history. 1,500 years ago, a large percentage, if not most, of Egyptians were Coptic Christians. Now, of course, Catholics would claim them as their own, so would Orthodox, because all this was pre-schism, before the schism between the Orthodox and the Catholic churches that happened in 1055. So 1,500 years ago, here in Egypt, most people were Coptic Christians. Well, then what happened? In the 7th century, there was the Arab invasion, and most people became Muslim. And that invasion took place very fast after the death of Muhammad. It was just 6 years after Muhammad, the invasion entered here. And it didn't just change people's religion. Most people spoke Coptic, and then they had to switch pretty rapidly to Arabic. And that's what most people speak here. Almost everyone here in Cairo, Egypt speaks Arabic. There's a few vestiges of Coptic left. The Coptic Orthodox monks still pray that in their liturgy. And you can even find some aspects of the Coptic language peppered through Egyptian Arabic. There's some good videos on YouTube that explain Egyptian Arabic, but we're not going to get into it. The point is, you can still find aspects of Coptic culture peppered through this land. And again, there's 10% Coptic Christians here in Egypt. I was getting an Uber ride through the city, and all through the city you can hear the wailing from the minarets, the Muslim prayers. And as I was taking this ride through the city in an Uber, it hit me that most of us think of Christianity as kind of like the weak man's religion, and Islam is the big tough guy's religion. And there's a little bit of a truth to this, obviously, because you think of like the Janissaries who spread Islam through holding the handle of the sword, and it's absolutely true that Christianity was spread through enduring the other side of the sword. I think everyone knows what I mean on that. I have to watch some of the algorithms on our hosts here. But again, there's a real truth to thinking of Christianity as St. Francis of Assisi, and Islam is the Janissaries from the Turkish lands, the Ottoman Empire. Again, let me say it again. Islam was spread through handling the handle of a sword, Christianity through enduring the other side of the sword. So there's a real truth to that. But as I was going through the city, I was thinking back, what type of people in the 7th century decided not to go to Islam? What kind of Coptic Christians say? Well, it was the strongest. It wasn't the weakest. It takes so much strength to swim upstream when your culture is entirely taken over. Now, of course, St. Paul makes this very clear. It is when I am weak that I am strong. But I think too often we just want to sit on our laurels and essentially say, oh, but I'm too weak to do anything virtuous. And then we quote someone like St. Therese. But if you read the canonization accounts of St. Therese, she was one of the most penitential Carmelites of her day in that convent. She had a very strong will. So yes, it is true that Christ often picks the weakest, but that is because they give their weakness to Christ and he makes them strong. And what does he make us strong in? He makes us strong in holding to the convictions of the gospel, of the magisterium, of the traditional sacraments. And So this can obviously be applied to the United States, because what we are facing right now in the United States is a slow burn. It's not a rapid invasion like what they endured here in the 7th century. We've been under this slow burn of secularism for a long time, and you have to wonder what kind of Christians are going to make it. Well, the answer is the same thing that happened, 1,300 years ago here in Egypt. It was going to be the strongest. Only the strongest are going to make it. Only the strongest are going to adhere to Jesus Christ, his Holy Mother, the Holy Theotokos. Only the strongest are going to stick with the traditional sacraments when everything seems to be moving against us. Now, behind me right here, if you're watching the video, there's probably some people just doing the audio only, but if you have a chance to look at the video, here at 6 minutes, right behind me is the Coptic Catholic Cathedral of Cairo, Egypt. That's not to be confused with the Coptic Orthodox Cathedral of Cairo, Egypt. Again, this is the Coptic Catholic Cathedral of Cairo, Egypt. I'm going to put the audio of some singing that I heard at Divine Liturgy here today as the kind of closing audio. So the closing audio you hear with my voice is not Muslim music. This is much more ancient Christian singing that I heard today at Divine Liturgy. Well, I got a tour of this church from the Coptic Catholic priest, who is himself Egyptian, yesterday, and he told me that the numbers are way down from about 10 years ago here at his cathedral. And he said especially young people don't want to go anymore. Well, I kind of expected him to say the reason why was because of the, we'll just say, other surrounding world religion here, the 90% of the other world religion in this city of 20 million people. That seems pretty intimidating. I thought he would say the young people aren't going to Divine Liturgy here at the Coptic Catholic Cathedral because of that, again, quote unquote, world religion that surrounds us here. But it wasn't that. I was very surprised. He explained it was secularism. It's secularism why the Egyptian kids, the teens, the Catholics, the baptized Catholic Egyptians here don't want to go to Divine Liturgy anymore. And he had broken English. I don't speak any Arabic. It should be me speaking Arabic, not him speaking English. But he spoke some English, and what was shocking to me is he did the hand symbol for kids on their phone. I don't think he meant at Divine Liturgy, but what he meant is the phones, the tablets, all these devices are taking kids away from Christ. It's secularism. It's the invasion of all these screens into their brains. Why no one is interested in Christ and the ancient faith that they have here in Egypt. And so right there, this supports what I was saying a few minutes ago about secularism in the United States, that it really is going to take the strongest, because that's what they're facing here in Egypt now. It's almost like another invasion, but a slow one. It's the invasion of the West. It's the invasion of materialism, immodesty, all these things that come specifically from the West is slowly invading here. Who's going to make it? It's not going to be the weakest. It's going to be the strongest. Again, I understand Christ picks the weakest and makes them strong, but we can't just wring our hands and say, oh, but I'm too tired to do my study to figure out how Christians always did it. I'm not smart enough to go share the faith with my family. I don't have time to teach catechism to my kids. We don't have time as a family to pray the daily rosary or whatever. Not everybody makes it. And this country is a perfect example where it's only the people that really hunker down that are still Coptic Christians. And so here's the positive side of all this too, though. If you're in the United States and you are swimming upstream, then don't sell yourself short. Or maybe a better way to put it is, don't downplay the gifts God gave you of staying a strong Catholic. Of course, they're gifts. It's not due to your own merits. We as Catholics, of course, believe that the initial graces of baptism are totally unmerited, right? But our cooperation with that comes especially through continuation of sacraments, a relationship with Jesus Christ, protection under the mantle of his Holy Mother, and knowing, as I said in the last video, the magisterium of the Catholic Church, that gives us the strength to keep the faith swimming upstream. And all of those are gifts. Of course you didn't earn them. All of those things are gifts, but you should thank God for those gifts if you're staying strong in the United States. Because to be perfectly honest, it's easier for me as a Catholic priest walking around in this religious habit. Let me put it this way. I don't feel the smothering of my soul in Cairo as I do in the United States. The Muslims here are very nice. I'm not saying that's a sufficient religion for salvation. I'm just saying they're very nice people, and I don't feel the level of anger and tension and everything else I do walking around on the streets of the United States in my civvies or in my hermit habit, either way. So you're doing something right. As I put on a blog recently, you're doing something right if you're swimming upstream, keeping traditional Catholicism, because only the strong are going to make it. So families out there, stay strong in the faith, and God bless you.